And just like that, the storm is now past. Let's take a quick look. In the previous video, I was doing some preparations to prepare for this, but you can see we had a ton of rain come through the garden. I mean, look how much water we got in our little adjacent field here. But you can see a little bit of damage from the storm. You can see this was a nice head of cabbage that actually I probably should have pulled out last Friday. I didn't get around to it. Got rained on really hard. The birds are starting to get to it and having fun with it, and you can feel it's a little toasted up, a little beat up. Luckily, all the rest of the produce looks really happy. We were able to lighten the load a little bit on some of our citrus. Some branches I'll show you that didn't get lightened up or are kind of tacoed over and folding over and bending. But for the most part, no snapped or broken limbs. It's maybe a little bit of dropped fruit that the tree got shaken loose. But for the most part, everything's looking pretty good. You can see right here along with our blueberries, they're a little inundated. The field out here is pretty flat. We don't have any like French drains or anything like that in here. So you can see there's just heavy rains for the last 3-4 days. The water's kind of accumulated a bit. But if we get a little bit of sunshine today, or the next few days, it's gonna quickly just evaporate or absorb into the soil. You can see our our potatoes are just pumping out of the soil right now. They're punching through. You can see another row of it over there. So thankfully that atmospheric river didn't do too much damage to the garden other than a little bit of fruit getting pulled from the trees. That's about it, thankfully. We do get a little bit of erosion. You can see some of the soil's been moved around a little bit, but for the most part, we try to keep a lot of mulch down in the areas that require it. And thankfully, most of the landscape here is pretty flat, at least of the walkways, and the overall shape of the land here is very flat. So it kind of just catches and just holds the water a little bit. It doesn't really sheet off too much. Except for there is a little hill over here. I'll show you. But yeah, take a look. All the potatoes are popping up, which is great. It's that time of year. Right now we're in middle of March. We planted these a couple weeks back, and they've now, started rooting and sprouting up to the surface, which is great. And hopefully things will just speed up because it's all about timing for us. We're trying to have it to where we can harvest the potatoes and then replace these rows with some of our summer crops before the summer school comes. But we'll see if that's possible or not. It kind of just comes down to timing and how fast they're going to grow. But yeah, we'll see. We got until basically the end of May. So March, April, May, hopefully we'll have enough time. But for the most part, the garden's looking pretty good. I'm happy with it. Like I said, here's some area you can see where we've actually mulched. We did use a lot of leaf mulch right through here, and which is nice, as you can actually see. We're raking leaves from our neighbors' trees. We chop them up with our mower, and then we laid them down in that walkway. But look, you can see right here. So weeds for days, and then boom, the area where we put a little pathway of chopped up leaves and whatnot. It's actually matted up pretty good. It actually created a nice pathway to walk on, which I appreciate. And it's kind of holding the weeds back at bay. You can see a little bit of that Bermuda grass trying to make its way across, which it certainly will do if we don't get to it. But it's kind of night and day where you can just see where we've laid it down. And for us, it just helps have a nice walkway that's clear and defined, but also just keeps those weeds out. But what's nice is for us, we want to try to keep a lot of this soil in. So having extra mulch in and around the garden, the rocks are a little bit helpful too to define that edge for us. It's a border. But it's really just all about keeping this soil right here locked away, right where it belongs, where the plants can get to it. You can see our beets are pretty happy here. But here's a little close-up of some of our citrus, and this is what I was talking about in the previous videos, trying to lighten the loads on some of these branches, because you can see this branch is just bent over like crazy. So one of the first things we'll do this morning is get out here and we'll pull some of the weight. Oh my God, there's about probably 20-30 pounds of fruit just at the edge of that branch. But tons and tons, you can't really see it, but just lots of fruit underneath here, weighing it down, probably about a dozen or two dozen orange along that branch. So for us, even though we went and did some bit of harvesting last Friday, probably still time to kind of lighten the load, get out here and get it harvested up. You can see some of the new growth already developing on the branches. So hopefully soon once we get it harvested, we'll fertilize, we'll prune as needed, and then we'll be looking forward to a really nice spring set of blossoms. That'll be all the fruit for next year. Of course, before the storms came, We actually kind of flipped the compost a little bit, and then we flattened out the top and tried to make it a little bit less pointy. We wanted to catch a lot of that rainwater to hopefully infiltrate our pile, to allow the fungi, the bacteria, the invertebrates to have adequate moisture. If the pile gets too dry, life's not good. So for us, the rains have been phenomenal for our pile. It's cooking up in there, getting nice and hot. And so we're looking forward to maybe letting it cook over for the next few weeks, and then we'll get back in it and we'll sift out what we can. Of course, tying down some of those young trees really paid off. This little young lime here did fine in the storm. The storm was also windy too, so we had heavy winds, heavy rain, and this little guy did fine, which is great. That's what we're expecting, and life is good. So I hope you enjoyed this. You can see our fruit trees are doing good. I got a video coming up on grafting because I've been grafting like crazy. I went to this wonderful event, got a bunch of branches, scions, and we started grafting. And so I'll have a new video on that. You can see right here. Here's a little teaser of some of the branches that we have attached to this tree. So our apple tree here is many varieties of new apple attached to this tree. So that's what we're trying to do. Not just the apples, but we got some peaches and some pluots and whatnot. But that'll be in a future video. Until next time, garden friends, I hope you're all doing great. Have a great week. Let's get out in that garden when the sun is shining and get after it. See you next time, friends.